The grand ballroom of the Westfield Hotel buzzed with excitement as Green Tech Solutions' annual gala kicked into high gear. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the sea of suits and cocktail dresses, the air thick with the scent of success and ambition. At the center of it all stood Jared Newton, an environmental engineer extraordinaire, his chest swelling with pride as he surveyed the room. Jared's fingers intertwined with those of his wife, Sharon, as they navigated through the crowd. He could not help but notice how her emerald dress hugged her curves, turning heads as they passed. A small part of him still marveled at how he had managed to land such a stunning woman. Quite the turnout, Sharon purred, her eyes scanning the room with calculated interest. I think I spotted the mayor earlier. Jared nodded, his attention momentarily captured by a group of colleagues animatedly discussing something near the bar. It is a big night for the company. That breakthrough in sustainable energy is going to change everything. As they made their way toward the bar, snippets of conversation drifted past Jared's ears. The words Costa Rica and clean energy kept popping up, sending a jolt of excitement through his body. He had been eyeing that project for months, poring over every scrap of information he could find. If he could land a leadership role on that team, I am going to grab us some drinks, Jared said, giving Sharon's hand a quick squeeze before releasing it. White wine. Sharon's lips curved into a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. You know me so well, darling. As Jared weaved through the crowd, he could not shake the feeling of eyes on his back. Glancing over his shoulder, he caught Robert Olson, the CEO of Green Tech, staring intently in Sharon's direction. There was something in Robert's gaze that made Jared's skin crawl, a hunger that seemed entirely out of place for a man of his position. Shaking off the unease, Jared reached the bar and ordered their drinks. He was about to head back when a hand clamped down on his shoulder, spinning him around. Robert Olson stood before him, a shark-like grin plastered across his face. Jared, my boy, enjoying the party. Mr. Olson, Jared replied, forcing a smile. Absolutely. It's a great night for Greench. Robert's eyes narrowed, that predatory gleam intensifying. He leaned in close, his breath hot against Jared's ear. Your wife will be joining me in my room tonight, or you're fired. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Jared blinked, certain he must have misheard, but as he opened his mouth to respond, Robert was already gone, melting back into the crowd as if he had never been there at all. Jared stood rooted to the spot, his mind reeling. The glasses in his hands suddenly felt impossibly heavy. He looked across the room to where Sharon stood, laughing at something a colleague had said. Her eyes met his, and for a split second, Jared saw something there, a flash of knowledge, of complicity, that made his blood run cold. With leaden feet, Jared made his way back to his wife. He handed her the wine glass, his fingers brushing against hers. The touch that had once sent sparks through his body now felt like ice against his skin. Everything all right, honey? Sharon asked, her voice dripping with concern that Jared suddenly wasn't sure he could trust. You look like you've seen a ghost. Jared forced a smile, knowing he couldn't confront her here, not in front of everyone. Just a little overwhelmed by all the excitement, he lied smoothly. It's been quite a night. Sharon's hand came to rest on his arm, a gesture that should have been comforting but now felt like a brand. Well, don't work yourself up too much. We've got a long night ahead of us. As the gala continued around them, Jared stood frozen in the eye of his personal storm. Jared's mind raced as he played the part of the proud employee, shaking hands and accepting congratulations, all while his world crumbled beneath his feet. He would get to the bottom of this, no matter the cost. The drive home from the gala was a study in strained silence. Jared's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched so tight he could hear his teeth grinding. Beside him, Sharon hummed softly to herself, seemingly oblivious to the tension radiating off her husband in waves. As they entered their penthouse apartment, Sharon kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. What a night, she said, stretching languidly. I think I'm going to take a quick shower before bed. Jared nodded mechanically, his eyes following her as she sauntered toward their bedroom. The moment the bathroom door clicked shut, he sprang into action. With quick, efficient movements, he searched through Sharon's purse and jacket pockets, looking for, he wasn't even sure what, some tangible proof of the nightmare Robert had whispered into his ear. Finding nothing, Jared paced the length of their bedroom, his mind racing. He couldn't confront her without evidence, could he? What if it had all been some sick joke on Robert's part? But deep down, Jared knew. He'd seen it in Sharon's eyes at the gala, in the way Robert had looked at her all night. The shower shut off, and Jared steeled himself. Evidence or not, he needed answers. Sharon emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a silk robe, her hair damp and tousled. She arched an eyebrow at Jared's rigid posture. "Something on your mind, darling?" Jared took a deep breath. "Robert came to me at the gala," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "He told me you'd be joining him in his room tonight. That if you didn't, I'd be fired." For a moment, Sharon's face was a mask of shock. Then, to Jared's horror, her lips curved into a cold, dismissive smile. She laughed, the sound sharp and mocking. "Oh, Jared, if you want to keep your job, the world seemed to tilt on its axis, and Jared knew he had better get used to it." He stared at his wife, this stranger wearing Sharon's face, unable to comprehend what he was hearing. Sharon's eyes glittered with a mixture of contempt and amusement. "Relax. This is how I've been paying the bills. You should be thanking me." "Thanking you?" Jared's voice was barely above a whisper. "For what? Sleeping with my boss? Betraying our marriage? Forgetting who you are?" Sharon shot back, her tone dripping with disdain. "Did you really think someone like you could climb the corporate ladder so quickly on merit alone?" Each word was a dagger, slicing through the life Jared thought he knew. "How long?" he managed to choke out. Sharon shrugged, the gesture infuriatingly casual. "Long enough. Robert's not the first, you know. There was Jim in accounting when you were angling for that promotion last year. Oh, and don't forget about that big bonus you got after the Westbrook project. You can thank David in HR for that one." Jared felt physically ill. He sank onto the edge of the bed, his legs no longer able to support him. "Why?" he asked, hating how broken he sounded. "Why would you do this?" "Because I could," Sharon replied, her voice cold and matter-of-fact. "Because it was easy. And because, let's face it, Jared, you're pathetic, so desperate to believe you earned all this." She gestured around their luxurious bedroom. "It was almost too easy to manipulate you." Something snapped inside Jared at those words. The shock and hurt crystallized into a cold, hard anger. He stood slowly, his eyes never leaving Sharon's face. "And what happens now?" he asked. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Sharon's face. "Now? Now you do what you've always done. You keep your head down, do your job, and be grateful for what I've given you." Jared laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that seemed to surprise them both. "You really think it's going to be that simple?" Sharon's eyes narrowed. "It better be, unless you want to lose everything. Face it, Jared, you need me." "No," Jared replied, his voice steady and cold. "I don't think I do." With that, he turned and walked out of the bedroom, leaving Sharon staring after him in stunned silence. As he closed the door behind him, Jared felt something shift inside him. The man who had walked into that room, trusting, naive, desperate for approval, was gone. In his place stood someone harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. The first rays of dawn were just beginning to streak the sky when Jared finally stopped pacing. He had spent the night in their home office, his mind racing, plotting, planning. By the time the sun rose, a course of action had crystallized in his mind. With steady hands, Jared reached for his phone. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he was looking for. Curtis Roy, his old college roommate. Curtis had gone into private investigation after graduation, building a reputation for discretion and thoroughness. If anyone could dig up the dirt Jared needed, it was Curtis. The phone rang 3 times before a groggy voice answered. "This better be good, Newton. Do you have any idea what time it is?" "I need your help." "Curtis," Jared said, his voice low and urgent. "I need everything you can dig up on Robert Olson and my wife. Financial records, communications, hotel stays, anything that proves their affair, and any potential corporate wrongdoing." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Curtis spoke again, all traces of sleep were gone from his voice. "Jared, man, this sounds heavy." "Yes, it is. But I'm ready for anything," Jared replied, steel in his tone. "Can you do it?" Curtis sighed. "Yeah, I can do it. But Jared, this kind of deep dive, it's not going to be cheap." A cold smile curved Jared's lips. "Money's not an issue. Just get me what I need." After ending the call with Curtis, Jared's fingers were already dialing another number. This time, it was Lel Myers who answered, a brilliant but eccentric programmer. They had first met at a conference the previous year. "It's Jared Newton," he said as soon as the call connected. "Remember that data encryption system you were working on? I need it, and I need it to be unbreakable." Elle's excitement was palpable, even through the phone. "Jared, I've made some major breakthroughs with that system. But why the sudden interest?" "Let's just say I've got some sensitive data that needs protecting," Jared replied smoothly. "How soon can you have it ready?" "Give me 48 hours, Elle said, then hesitated. "But Jared, this isn't for anything illegal, right?" Jared's laugh was short and humorless. "Nothing illegal, Elle. Just protecting myself." The final call was to Virgil Stewart, an old friend who now worked in HR at GreenTech's main competitor. Jared's heart raced as he waited for Virgil to pick up. This was the riskiest part of his plan, but if it worked— "Jared," Virgil's voice was surprised. "It's been a while, man. What's up?" Jared took a deep breath. "Virgil, how'd you like to poach GreenTech's star engineer and land the Costa Rica project in one fell swoop?" The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When Virgil finally spoke, his voice was a mixture of shock and excitement. "Are you serious, Jared? That would be— it would be huge. But what about your contract? The non-compete clause?" "Let me worry about that," Jared said firmly. "Can you make it happen?" Virgil's response was immediate. "For a coup like this? Absolutely. But Jared, it's a big move." Jared's grip tightened on the phone. "Virgil, this is happening." As he ended the call, Jared felt a sense of calm settle over him. The pieces were in motion now. Sharon, Robert, GreenTech. They had no idea what was coming. But they would. Oh, they would. Jared walked to the window, watching as the city below began to stir to life. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, a man transformed. The naive, trusting Jared Newton was gone. In his place stood someone harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. "Let them come. They think they have won," Jared mused, a subtle smile gracing his lips. "They have no idea what is coming." As the sun rose fully over the city, Jared Newton began to prepare for war. The weeks following the gala unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance, with Jared Newton playing the lead role to perfection. To the outside world, he remained the dedicated environmental engineer, working late into the night on groundbreaking projects. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Jared's days took on a new rhythm. He arrived at the office early, his face a mask of focus and determination. Colleagues praised his work ethic, unaware of the true nature of his late nights. As the sun set over the city skyline, Jared would hunker down in his office, surrounded by stacks of reports and glowing computer screens. "Another late night, Jared?" Robert Olson's voice oozed false concern as he leaned against the door frame one evening. "Don't work yourself to death. We need you sharp for the coastal project." Jared looked up, his eyes carefully blank. "Just tying up some loose ends, sir. You know how it is." Robert's smirk made Jared's skin crawl. "Oh, I do. Say hello to Sharon for me, won't you?" As soon as Robert's footsteps faded, Jared's fingers flew across the keyboard, sending an encrypted message to Curtis Roy. The private investigator had been working tirelessly, digging through financial records, communication logs, and hotel reservations. Curtis's reply came within minutes. "You're not going to believe what I found. Robert's been cooking the books for years. And your wife? Let's just say she's been a very busy woman." Jared's jaw clenched as he read through the attached files. Bank statements showing mysterious deposits into Sharon's personal account, credit card receipts from high-end hotels on dates when Sharon claimed to be visiting her sister, emails between Robert and Sharon filled with thinly veiled innuendos and explicit plans. But it was not just the affair. Curtis had uncovered even more. Uncovering a trail of harassment complaints against Robert, all quietly settled out of court, financial records revealed discrepancies that hinted at embezzlement on a massive scale. As the evidence mounted, Jared felt a cold satisfaction settling in his chest. He reached for his phone, dialing L. Myers. "L, I need an update on that encryption system," Jared said without preamble. The programmer's voice crackled with excitement. "It's ready, Jared. I've run every test I can think of. This thing is Fort Knox digitized. What are you planning to do with it?" Jared's lips curved into a humorless smile. "Let's just say I'm safeguarding some very sensitive information. Can you walk me through the setup?" For the next hour, Jared listened intently as L explained the intricacies of the encryption system. By the time he hung up, Jared possessed a secure digital vault that would make any government agency envious. With methodical precision, Jared began uploading the evidence Curtis had gathered: financial records, emails, hotel receipts, all safely encrypted and backed up on multiple secure servers. But Jared didn't stop there. He began documenting every interaction with Sharon and Robert, building an airtight case that would leave no room for denial or excuses. Late one night, as Jared was reviewing some particularly damning emails between Sharon and Robert, a notification popped up on his screen. It was an alert from the hidden camera he had installed in their bedroom, a necessary evil in his quest for truth. The footage showed Sharon sneaking in well past midnight, her clothes disheveled and her makeup smudged. Jared watched dispassionately as she fumbled with her phone, whispering into it. "It's done." Sharon's voice came through clearly. "Jared doesn't suspect a thing. We'll have him out of the way soon, and then the Costa Rica project is all yours, baby." Jared's fingers hovered over the keyboard, a mix of emotions churning in his gut. Part of him wanted to confront Sharon then and there to unleash the fury that had been building for weeks, but the rational part of his brain, the part that had been meticulously planning his revenge, held him back. Patience, he reminded himself. The time for confrontation would come. As the days turned into weeks, Jared's digital arsenal grew. Every whispered conversation, every clandestine meeting, every manipulated financial report, all carefully documented and securely stored. He was building a case that would not only expose Sharon and Robert's betrayal, but would bring the entire corrupt house of cards tumbling down. One evening, as Jared was preparing to leave the office, Robert cornered him by the elevators. The CEO's eyes glinted with malicious triumph as he delivered the news Jared had been expecting. "I'm pulling you off the Costa Rica project," Robert announced, his tone dripping with false regret. "We need someone with a bit more experience at the helm." Jared fought to keep his expression neutral, even as his pulse quickened. "May I ask why, sir?" "I've been working on this project for months." Robert's smile was shark-like. "Let's just say your performance hasn't been up to par lately. Maybe if your wife was more cooperative, things would be different." It took every ounce of Jared's self-control not to react. He simply nodded, his voice steady as he replied, "I understand, sir. Is there anything else?" Robert seemed almost disappointed by Jared's lack of reaction. "No, that'll be all. You can clear out your project files in the morning." As the elevator doors closed between them, Jared allowed himself a small, cold smile. Robert had no idea that he was already 10 steps ahead, that every word of that conversation had been recorded and added to the mountain of evidence. Jared's phone buzzed as he stepped out of the elevator. It was a message from Virgil Stewart. "Everything's in place on our end. Just say the word, and we'll make the offer official." Jared typed out a quick reply. "Not yet, but soon. Be ready." That night, as Jared drove home, a profound sense of calm settled over him. All the pieces were finally falling into place. Sharon and Robert, in their arrogance, believed themselves to be clever and untouchable, yet they remained completely unaware of the storm that was about to break over their heads. The following week witnessed a distinct shift in the dynamics at Green Tech Solutions. Emboldened by their perceived victory in removing Jared from the Costa Rica project, Sharon and Robert grew increasingly brazen in their behavior. Their stolen glances across the office and the seemingly accidental brushes in the hallway did not go unnoticed by the staff, though few dared to comment openly on the indiscretions of the CEO. What they failed to realize, however, was that their every move was being meticulously documented. Jared, playing the part of the defeated husband and employee to perfection, had eyes and ears everywhere. One afternoon, while Jared was engrossed in a mundane report, he noticed Sharon and Robert huddled in an intense conversation near the break room. Their furtive glances in his direction set off alarm bells in his mind. Casually, he adjusted his watch, a gift from his father that doubled as a high-tech recording device. Later that night, as Jared reviewed the recording, their voices came through with chilling clarity. "He's too calm." Sharon's voice was sharp with anxiety. "I don't like it. What if he suspects something?" Robert's dismissive laugh grated on Jared's nerves. "Suspects what? That his wife is sleeping with his boss? That he's too incompetent to handle the Costa Rica project? Please, the man's an idiot." "Still," Sharon insisted, "we should do something. Make sure he can't cause any trouble." There was a pause before Robert spoke again, his tone conspiratorial. I might have an idea. Leave it to me. The next day, Jared arrived at work to find the office buzzing with a palpable tension. He had barely settled at his desk when Robert's assistant approached him, her face a mask of professional concern. Mr. Newton, Mr. Olson would like to see you in his office immediately, she said. Jared nodded, his heart rate picking up even as his expression remained composed. His expression remained neutral. This was it, the move he had been anticipating. As he made his way to Robert's office, he sent a quick encrypted message to Elle. It's happening. Be ready. Robert was not alone in his office. Sharon stood by the window, her face a study in false sympathy. Catherine Winters, the head of HR, sat rigidly in one of the chairs, her expression grave. Jared, please have a seat, Robert began, his voice dripping with insincere concern. We've called you in because a serious issue has come to our attention. Catherine cleared her throat, clearly uncomfortable. During a routine security audit, we discovered some irregularities on your work computer. Specifically, evidence of unauthorized access to sensitive company documents and what appears to be communication with our main competitor about the Costa Rica project. Jared allowed his eyes to widen in shock, even as a cold fury settled in his chest. That's impossible, he protested, his voice carefully modulated to convey disbelief and a hint of fear. I would never. The evidence is quite clear, Mr. Newton, Catherine interrupted, not meeting his eyes. Emails, file transfers, it's all there. Robert leaned forward, his expression a mix of disappointment and barely concealed triumph. I'm afraid we have no choice but to suspend you pending a full investigation. We'll need you to hand over your company laptop and clear out your office immediately. Jared stood slowly, his mind racing. This was the moment he had prepared for, but the reality of it still sent a jolt of adrenaline through his system. Can I at least gather my personal belongings? He asked, his voice hollow. Catherine nodded, looking relieved at his apparent compliance. Of course, but I'll need to accompany you. As they walked to his office, Jared's fingers flew over his phone, sending a series of prearranged signals to Elle. By the time they reached his desk, the trap was set. Sharon appeared in the doorway as Jared began clearing out his desk. Her eyes gleamed with malicious satisfaction. Oh, honey, she cooed, her voice sickly sweet. Let me help you with that. Before Jared could react, Sharon had grabbed his briefcase, her movements deliberate as she accidentally knocked over a cup of coffee. The dark liquid spread rapidly across the surface of the desk, soaking into a stack of papers, Jared's handwritten project notes. Oh no, Sharon gasped, her performance almost convincing. Jared, I'm so sorry about your notes. Jared waved off her apology, his face a mask of resignation. It's fine. They were just rough drafts anyway. As Sharon dabbed ineffectually at the mess, her eyes met Robert's across the room. The triumphant smirk they shared would have been imperceptible to most, but Jared caught it. His jaw clenched imperceptibly as he finished packing up his belongings. What Sharon and Robert didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Jared had been 3 steps ahead of them the entire time. The computer they'd so carefully planted evidence on was a perfect replica, created by Elle's technical wizardry. Every keystroke, every file transfer on the original machine had been monitored and recorded, creating an irrefutable trail of their attempted sabotage. And those handwritten notes Sharon had so gleefully destroyed, they had been digitized and encrypted weeks ago, safely stored on multiple secure servers. As Jared was escorted from the building, his badge and laptop confiscated, he allowed himself a small smile. Let them think they've won, he thought. The real game is just beginning. Later that night, in the safety of his home office, Jared reviewed the day's events with Elle and Curtis via a secure video call. They took the bait, Jared confirmed, his voice tight with controlled anger. Hook, line, and sinker. Elle's excited voice crackled through the speakers. I've got everything, Jar. The whole thing. Them planting the evidence, Sharon's little coffee stunt. It's all recorded and time-stamped. Curtis chimed in, his tone professional but firm. Tinged with admiration. This is the nail in the coffin, Jared. With this, plus everything else we've gathered, they're finished. Jared nodded, a cold satisfaction settling over him. Good. Keep monitoring everything. I want to know their every move. As he ended the call, Jared's gaze fell on a framed photo on his desk. Him and Sharon on their wedding day, both smiling brightly at the camera. With deliberate slowness, he turned the frame face down. The time for sentiment was long past. Now, it was time for justice. The following week unfolded like a high-stakes chess match, with Jared Newton carefully maneuvering his pieces into position. To the outside world, he appeared to be a man in crisis, suspended from his job, potentially facing criminal charges, his personal and professional life in shambles. But beneath the surface, Jared was orchestrating the endgame of a plan months in the making. While Sharon and Robert reveled in their apparent victory, Jared was in constant communication with Virgil Stewart, the HR executive at GreenTech's main competitor. Stewart had been working tirelessly to create a position that would not only poach Jared, but would allow him to bring the Costa Rica project with him. "It's all set," Virgil confirmed during one of their encrypted video calls. "The board is practically salivating at the prospect of landing you and the project. They're prepared to offer you full creative control and a compensation package that'll make your head spin." Jared nodded, his expression grave. "Good. But we can't move too quickly. Robert and Sharon need to think they've got me cornered. We need to wait for the right moment." That moment came sooner than expected. 3 days after his suspension, Jared received a terse email from Catherine Winters summoning him to a meeting at GreenTech headquarters. The tone of the message left little doubt as to the nature of the conversation to come. As Jared drove to the office, his mind raced through the possibilities. He had envisioned numerous possible scenarios and prepared for this moment, devising contingency plans for every eventuality. Yet, despite his thorough preparations, a tendril of anxiety coiled in his gut. Everything hinged on the next few hours. The reception area was eerily quiet as Jared stepped off the elevator. Robert's assistant, her face a mask of professional neutrality, led him to the conference room without uttering a word. Inside, Robert sat at the head of the table, his posture radiating smug confidence. Sharon was conspicuously absent. "Ah, Jared." Robert's voice dripped with false concern. "Thank you for coming in. Please, have a seat." Jared complied, his face carefully blank. "What's this about, Robert?" Robert's eyes glinted with malicious triumph as he leaned forward. "I'll cut to the chase, Jared. Our investigation has uncovered irrefutable evidence of your misconduct. Corporate espionage, attempted sabotage of the Costa Rica project. It's all there in black and white." He paused, clearly savoring the moment. Now, normally, this would be a matter for the authorities. However, given your years of service to GreenTech, I'm prepared to offer you a way out. Jared raised an eyebrow, silently prompting Robert to continue. "We're transferring you to the Minneapolis office," Robert announced, a shark-like grin spreading across his face. "Effective immediately. It's a lateral move, of course. Can't have someone with your history in a position of real authority." Jared allowed shock and outrage to flicker across his features. "You can't be serious," he protested, his voice rising. "My entire life is here. My work on the Costa Rica project." Robert's laugh cut him off. "Your work? Please, Jared. We both know you were never qualified to lead that project. Maybe if your wife had been more cooperative, things would be different. But as it stands, you should be grateful we're not pressing charges." For a moment, Jared let genuine anger flash in his eyes. It wasn't hard to summon. The weeks of deception, the betrayal, the sheer audacity of Robert's arrogance. He stood. Abruptly, his chair scraped against the floor. "You won't get away with this," Jared growled, his hands clenched at his sides. Robert's smirk only widened. "I already have, Jared. You have until the end of the week to accept the transfer, or we will be forced to terminate your employment and pursue legal action. Choose wisely." As Jared stormed out of the conference room, Robert's laughter echoing behind him, he allowed himself a small, cold smile. If only Robert knew the trap he had just walked into. Back in his home office, Jared wasted no time. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he composed a carefully worded email to Virgil. The subject line read simply, "It's time." Within hours, the wheels were in motion. As Jared packed up his desk, for real this time, he could feel the curious and pitying stares of his soon-to-be former colleagues. He played the part of the defeated man perfectly, his shoulders slumped, his movements slow and deliberate. Sharon sauntered over, her face a mask of false concern. "Oh, Jared," she cooed, loud enough for others to hear. "I'm so sorry it's come to this. Is there nothing I can do to help?" Jared met her gaze. allowing a flicker of pain to cross his features. "I think you've done enough, Sharon," he replied, his voice low and tight. As he placed the last of his belongings into a cardboard box, Jared's phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was from Virgil. "Everything's set. Contracts are ready. Just say the word." With a deep breath, Jared picked up his box and made his way to the elevator. As the doors closed, separating him from the life he had known, he allowed himself a small, triumphant smile. Little did Green Tech know, but they had just lost far more than a single engineer. In the parking lot, Jared placed the box in his car and pulled out his phone. His fingers hovered over the screen for a moment before he composed a simple, encrypted message to Virgil. As he drove away from Green Tech Solutions for what he knew would be the last time, Jared felt the weight lifted from his shoulders, the deception, the constant vigilance, the suppressed anger. It had all taken its toll, but now, finally, the endgame was in sight. At home, Jared spent the evening finalizing details with Virgil and his new employers. The contract they offered was everything V had promised and more: a senior position, creative control over the Costa Rica project, and a compensation package that made his Green Tech salary look like pocket change. As midnight approached, Jared sat back in his chair, a tumbler of whiskey in hand. He allowed himself a moment of reflection, thinking back on the months of careful planning, the sleepless nights, the constant stress of maintaining his facade. Tomorrow, the world would change. Green Tech would wake up to find their star engineer gone, their prized Costa Rica project in the hands of their biggest competitor. Sharon and Robert would realize too late the magnitude of their mistake. But for now, in the quiet of his study, Jared raised his glass in a silent toast. To justice, to karma, and to the sweet taste of revenge long in the making. With a satisfied sigh, Jared set down his glass and turned to his computer. There was one last piece of the puzzle to put into place. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he composed an email that would set the final act in motion. As he hit send, Jared felt a sense of finality wash over him. There was no going back now, but he felt no regret, no hesitation, only a cold, fierce anticipation for what the morning would bring. Jared closed his laptop and stood, stretching muscles tight from hours of work. As he made his way to bed, he paused by the window, looking out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Sharon and Robert were probably celebrating their perceived victory, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break over their heads. Let them have their night, Jared thought. Tomorrow, everything changes. With that, Jared turned away from the window. He retired for the evening, sensing he would require every ounce of his strength for the day ahead. The morning sun had scarcely cleared the horizon when chaos descended upon Green Tech Solutions. As employees trickled into the office, a collective gasp swept through the building. Every single inbox had received an anonymous email, its contents sending shockwaves through the entire company. Lisa Chan, a junior engineer, stared at her screen in disbelief. "Oh my God," she whispered, her eyes widening as she scrolled through page after page of damning evidence. There were emails detailing Robert Olson's harassment of multiple employees, financial records showing discrepancies that reeked of embezzlement, and perhaps most shocking of all, intimate correspondence between Robert and Sharon Newton, leaving no doubt about their long-standing affair. The office erupted into a flurry of whispers and shocked exclamations. Phone lines lit up as employees called friends and family, spreading the news like wildfire. Social media platforms buzzed with speculation and outrage. In the executive suite, Robert Olson's face drained of color as he read through the email. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone, frantically dialing Sharon's number. "What the hell is going on?" he hissed when she answered. "How did this happen?" Sharon's voice was tight with panic. "I don't know. This is impossible. We were so careful." As the magnitude of the situation dawned on them, neither noticed the figure striding purposefully through the chaos of the main office. Jared Newton, looking impeccable in a crisp suit, walked with the calm confidence of a man who knew he held all the cards. Employees fell silent as he passed, their eyes following him with a mixture of awe and confusion. Wasn't he supposed to be in Minneapolis? Without breaking stride, Jared made his way to the Human Resources Department. He knocked once on the door of Catherine Winters, the formidable head of HR, before entering. Catherine looked up, her face a mask of composed surprise. Beneath a mask of professional composure, she concealed the tumult raging beyond her office walls. "Mr. Newton," she spoke, her voice meticulously neutral. "I hadn't anticipated your presence here today." Jared's smile was glacial as he settled into the seat opposite her. "I suspect you'll discover I am quite full of surprises, Ms. Winters." He reached into his briefcase and produced a USB drive. "I believe you will want to hear this." For the ensuing hour, Catherine sat in stunned silence as Jared played recording after recording. The confrontation with Sharon laid bare her infidelity and manipulation. Conversations with Robert proved, beyond any shadow of a doubt, his complicity in the affair and his abuse of power. As the final recording concluded, Catherine's face had hardened into a mask of righteous fury. "This ends now," she declared, her voice resonating with finality. Jared leaned back in his chair, an expression of profound satisfaction on his face. "I couldn't possibly agree more, Miss Winters. I believe you will find that USB contains everything necessary for you to take appropriate action. Financial records, email correspondences, hotel receipts. It is all there." Catherine's eyes narrowed as she studied Jared intently. "You have been planning this for some time, haven't you?" "Let us simply say I am a firm believer in being prepared," Jared replied, his tone neutral, yet his eyes glinting with a complex mixture of pain and triumph. "Now, if you will excuse me, I believe I have a meeting with the board of directors." As Jared departed Catherine's office, the whispers in the hallway swelled to a fever pitch. Employees who had once regarded him with pity now looked upon him with a potent blend of awe and fear. The man they thought they knew, the cuckolded husband, the engineer perpetually passed over for promotion, was gone. In his place stood someone far more formidable. Meanwhile, within Robert's office, panic had taken root. He paced back and forth, running his hands agitatedly through his hair as Sharon sat on the couch, her face ashen. "We need to get ahead of this," Robert muttered, more to himself than to Sharon. "Deny everything. Assert the emails are forgeries. The financial records were fabricated and altered. We can weather this storm." Sharon's laugh was hollow. "Are you insane? It's over, Robert. They have everything." Before Robert could respond, there was a sharp knock at the door. Catherine Winters entered, her face set in grim lines. "Mr. Olson, Mrs. Newton, I'm going to have to ask you both to come with me. The board is convening an emergency meeting." As they were let out of the office, Robert and Sharon caught sight of Jared standing by the elevators. His eyes met theirs, and for a moment they saw the full extent of his transformation. This was not the man they had so carelessly betrayed and underestimated. This was someone who had outmaneuvered them at every turn. Jared's smile was cold as the elevator doors closed between them. The game was over, and he had won. The following days at Green Tech Solutions were a whirlwind of activity as news of the scandal broke. The company's stock plummeted, sending shock waves through the industry. Reporters camped outside the building, hungry for any scrap of information about the salacious affair and financial misconduct that had rocked the company to its core. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Robert Olson had been immediately suspended pending a full investigation, his office sealed off as forensic accountants combed through years of financial records. Sharon Newton found herself persona non grata, her former friends and colleagues giving her a wide berth in the hallways. In the employee break room, conversations buzzed with speculation and gossip. "I always knew there was something off about Robert," whispered Amanda from marketing. "Remember how he used to look at the interns?" Jake from IT nodded vigorously. "And Sharon, man, I can't believe we never saw it. Poor Jared, though. Guy must be devastated." Little did they know that Jared was far from devastated. In fact, he was executing the final stages of his plan with surgical precision while chaos reigned. At Green Tech, Jared Calley entered his bank and commenced a series of transactions he had meticulously planned months earlier. With a few signatures, he liquidated all his shares and options in the company, thereby securing his financial future from the impending fallout that was certain to ensue. As he departed the bank, Jared's phone vibrated with a notification. Green Tech stock had plummeted an additional 15% in the last hour. He permitted himself a faint smile. The house of cards was now thoroughly collapsing. Meanwhile, back at Green Tech, Robert and Sharon were engaged in a desperate struggle to salvage what remained of their reputations and careers. Robert had retained a high-powered attorney who was currently embroiled in intense negotiations with the board of directors. "This is nothing but a witch hunt," Robert blustered, his face flushed with a mixture of anger and terror. "I have given everything to this company. You cannot simply discard me based on fabricated evidence." Eleanor, the lead board member, a stern-faced woman, fixed Robert with an unyielding glare. "Fabricated evidence, Mr. Olson? We possess emails in your own words detailing your affair with Mrs. Newton. We have financial records revealing discrepancies that can only be explained by embezzlement. Your position here is untenable." Robert deflated, the fight draining from him as the gravity of his circumstances settled in. What happens now?" he inquired, his voice diminished. Eleanor's tone was frigid as she responded. "You will be escorted from the building. The board will be pressing charges for the financial misconduct. As for the harassment claims, well, I advise you to prepare for a legal battle." As Robert was led out of the boardroom, he glimpsed Sharon waiting in the hallway. Their eyes met, and in that instant, they both perceived the full magnitude of their loss. Power, prestige, respect, all vanished in the blink of an eye. For her part, Sharon was not conceding defeat without a struggle. She had arranged a meeting with Catherine Winters, resolved to manipulate the situation to her advantage. "Catherine, you have to. Please, you must understand," Sharon pleaded, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "I was a victim in all of this. Robert coerced me. I was afraid for my job, for Jared's job. You cannot punish me for being manipulated." Catherine's face remained impassive as she listened to Sharon's desperate attempts at justification. When Sharon finally ran out of steam, Catherine spoke, her voice level but tinged with disgust. "Mrs. Newton, let me be clear. We have extensive evidence of your willing participation in this affair. Emails, text messages, hotel receipts, all pointing to a consensual relationship that you used to manipulate company decisions and secure promotions for your husband. Your position here is no longer tenable." Sharon's face crumpled, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. But what about Jared? He'll vouch for me. I know he will. He loves me. He'll understand." Catherine's laugh was short and without humor. "Mrs. Newton, I think you'll find that Jared understands far more than you ever gave him credit for. Now please clean out your desk. Security will escort you from the building." As Sharon was let out, whispers and stares followed her every step. She felt the full weight of her actions crashing down upon her. She had gambled everything on her ability to manipulate and deceive, and she had lost spectacularly. Outside the building, Sharon found herself face to face with a group of reporters, their cameras flashing as they shouted questions. "Mrs. Newton, is it true you had an affair with Robert Olson? Did you help him steal company funds? What do you have to say about the allegations of manipulation and deceit?" Sharon pushed past them, her head down, mascara streaking her cheeks. As she reached the sidewalk, she looked up and froze. There, across the street, stood Jared. Their eyes met, and for a moment Sharon saw the man she had so carelessly betrayed, strong, determined, and completely beyond her reach. Jared held her gaze for a long moment before turning away. Turning and walking away, he left Sharon alone to face the consequences of her actions. As the day wore on, the full extent of the scandal continued to unfold. Green Tech's public relations team worked overtime, striving to contain the damage and reassure shareholders, but the truth was undeniable. The company's reputation had been severely damaged, and it would take years to recover. Amid the chaos, Jared Newton had disappeared. Rumors swirled about his whereabouts and his role in exposing the scandal. Some painted him as a victim, while others portrayed him as a mastermind. But Jared was far beyond caring about office gossip. He had a plane to catch and a new life to begin. In the boardroom of Green Tech Solutions' main competitor, Innovate, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Executives in sharp suits sat around a polished table, their eyes fixed on the man standing at the head of the room. Jared Newton, looking confident and composed, was outlining the details of the Costa Rica project, a project that, until yesterday, had been Green Tech's crown jewel. "Gentlemen, ladies," Jared said, his voice strong and clear, "what you're looking at is the future of clean energy in developing nations. This project has the potential to revolutionize how we approach sustainable development." The CEO of Innovate, a shrewd businessman named Marcus Chun, leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "And you're certain you can deliver on this, Mr. Newton? After all, until very recently, you were with our biggest competitor." Jared's smile was cool and assured. "I can do more than deliver, Mr. Chun. I can guarantee that within 6 months, we'll be breaking ground in Costa Rica. Within a year, we'll have a functional prototype that will make Green Tech's plans look like a high school science project." A murmur of approval rippled through the room. Marcus nodded, clearly impressed. "Well then, Mr. Newton, I believe we have ourselves a deal. Welcome to Eco-Innovate." As hands were shaken and contracts signed, Jared, a profound sense of liberation washed over him, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. This was the moment, the culmination of months of meticulous planning and careful maneuvering. He had not only escaped the toxic environment at Green Tech, but had strategically positioned himself to achieve everything he had ever dreamed of professionally. Meanwhile, back at Green Tech, the board of directors was in a state of crisis. The loss of the Costa Rica project, coupled with the public relations nightmare of the Olsen-Newton scandal, had sent the company into a tailspin. "We need to get Newton back," one board member insisted. "He's the only one who fully understands the Costa Rica project. Without him, we're dead in the water." The others nodded in agreement, desperation clear on their faces. They had underestimated Jared Newton, allowing Robert Olson's machinations to push aside their most valuable asset. Now, they were paying the price. A hasty call was placed to Jared's cell phone. To their surprise, he answered on the first ring. "Mr. Newton," the board chairman began, his voice a mixture of authority and pleading. "We've made a terrible mistake. We'd like to offer you your job back with a substantial promotion and compensation package. Of course, we need you to lead the Costa Rica project. Name your price." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Jared finally spoke, his voice was calm and measured. "I appreciate the offer, gentlemen, but I'm afraid I must decline. You see, I've already accepted a position elsewhere." The board members exchanged panicked looks. "Mr. Newton, please," the chairman pressed. "We're prepared to offer you an enormous settlement, whatever it takes to bring you back." Jared's laugh was cold and without humor. "A settlement for what? For allowing a corrupt CEO to sexually harass my wife? For turning a blind eye to financial misconduct? Or perhaps for trying to sabotage my career when I wouldn't play along with your games?" The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "No, gentlemen," Jared continued. "Is my voice hardening? I do not want your money or your job offers. What I want is for you to understand the full consequences of your actions, or rather, your inactions." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "I believe in karma," he told them, his tone final. "And karma has a way of collecting debts. Goodbye, gentlemen. I wish you the best of luck with the Costa Rica project. You're going to need it." With that, Jared ended the call, leaving the board of directors staring at each other in stunned silence. They had just lost their last hope of salvaging the biggest project in the company's history. As Jared walked out of Eco-Innovate's offices, contract in hand, and a bright future ahead of him, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. The past few months had been a crucible, testing him in ways he never imagined. But he had emerged stronger, more determined, and with a clear understanding of his own worth. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Green Tech stock had plummeted another 10% following the announcement of his departure. Jared felt no satisfaction at the company's downfall, only a sense of justice served. As he made his way to his car, Jared caught sight of a familiar figure on the sidewalk. Robert Olson, looking disheveled and defeated, was being led away by police officers. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Jared saw the realization dawn in Robert's face, the understanding that he had gravely underestimated the man he thought he could so easily discard. A few steps behind Robert, Sharon stood alone, mascara streaking her cheeks as she watched her lover being taken away. She looked up, her eyes locking with Jared's for a moment. Regret and desperation flashed across her face. She opened her mouth as if to speak, to plead, to explain, but Jared didn't spare her a second glance. He had a plane to catch, to Costa Rica, where a new life and a promising future awaited. As he slid into the driver's seat, Jared felt a sense of peace wash over him. The price of integrity had been paid, and now, at last, he was free. Betrayal had been rampant, yet in the end, justice had prevailed. The engine purred to life, and Jared pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the wreckage of his old life. Ahead lay endless possibilities, a chance to rebuild on his own terms. As the city skyline receded in his rearview mirror, Jared allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The game was over, and he had emerged victorious. Epilogue. The aftermath. 6 months had passed since the explosive revelations that had rocked Green Tech Solutions to its core. The dust had settled, but the landscape for those involved had changed irrevocably. Robert Olson, once the powerful and seemingly untouchable CEO of Green Tech, now found himself in a small, gray cell in the state penitentiary. The trial had been swift and merciless, with the mountain of evidence Jared had accumulated leaving no room for doubt. Robert had been convicted on multiple counts of theft, harassment, and corporate fraud. His sentence, 15 years, with no possibility of parole for at least 10. The man who once commanded boardrooms and manipulated lives now spent his days in prison-issued overalls, his once immaculate appearance a distant memory. Robert's fall from grace was complete. His name had become synonymous with corporate corruption in business schools across the country. His wife had divorced him immediately after his conviction, taking what little remained of his assets. Robert Olson, who had once believed himself untouchable, now understood the true meaning of isolation and consequence. Sharon Newton's fate, while not as severe as Robert's, was no less transformative. Unable to find work in her field due to her involvement in the scandal, Sharon had been forced to move back to her hometown, a small city where gossip traveled fast. She now worked as a cashier at a local supermarket, her designer clothes and luxurious lifestyle a distant memory. The whispers and stares of customers who recognized her from the national news coverage were a constant reminder of her past, a constant reminder of her fall from grace. Sharon's attempts to reconnect with old friends or form new relationships were met with cold shoulders and suspicious glances. The woman who had once prided herself on her ability to manipulate and charm now found herself ostracized and alone. In quiet moments, Sharon was haunted by the enormity of what she had lost. Not merely the material comforts, but the respect and love of a good man she had so carelessly discarded. Meanwhile, Green Tech Solutions was still reeling from the scandal. The company's stock had plummeted to record lows, and despite the board's best efforts, they struggled to regain investor confidence. The loss of the Costa Rica project to their main competitor, Eco-Innovate, had been a devastating blow. Green Tech was now a shadow of its former self, with massive layoffs and a complete restructuring of the executive team. Catherine Winters, the former head of HR, had emerged as one of the few heroes of the scandal. Her swift action in the face of the revelations had saved the company from complete collapse. She had been promoted to Chief Operating Officer and was now spearheading efforts to rebuild Green Tech's reputation, implementing stringent new policies to prevent any future misconduct. Curtis Roy, Jared's college roommate turned private investigator, had seen his business boom in the wake of the Green Tech scandal. His role in uncovering the truth had not gone unnoticed, and he was now sought after by companies and individuals alike for his discretion and thoroughness. Curtis often thought back to that early morning call from Jared, marveling at how it had changed both their lives. Lel Myers, the eccentric programmer who had provided the unbreakable encryption system, had parlayed his involvement in the case into a successful cybersecurity startup. His company, founded with seed money from a grateful Jared, was now at the forefront of data protection. Virgil Stewart, the protection technology expert who had played a pivotal role in orchestrating Jared's transition to Eco-Innovate, was handsomely rewarded for his contributions in securing both Jared and the Costa Rica project. His career ascended as he was promoted to head of global talent acquisition, his talent for identifying and securing top-tier professionals now legendary throughout the company. As for Jared Newton, he flourished in his new position at Eco-Innovate. Under his leadership, the Costa Rica project surpassed all expectations, transforming what had once been a promising concept into a tangible reality, with clean energy solutions now being implemented across developing nations. Jared's innovative methods and relentless work ethic did not go unnoticed. He was now being groomed for a seat on Eco-Innovate's board of directors. Yet it was not all professional advancement for Jared. The healing process had been long and, at times, painful, but he emerged with renewed strength and self-assurance. He rediscovered passions long neglected, hiking, photography, and playing the guitar. Colleagues frequently remarked on the positive energy he brought to every meeting and every endeavor. On a personal level, Jared began opening himself to the possibility of love once more. He had recently started dating Maria, an environmental lawyer he met during a conference in Sao Paulo. Their shared commitment to sustainability and social justice sparked an immediate connection. Though Jared was taking things slowly, he found himself genuinely smiling again, looking ahead to a future rich with possibilities. The divorce proceedings, finalized 4 months after the scandal broke, proceeded smoothly due to Jared's thorough preparation. The court took into account Sharon's infidelity and her involvement in the corporate scandal, awarding Jared the majority of their joint assets, including their penthouse apartment and vacation home. Sharon's attempts to claim alimony were swiftly dismissed in light of her actions and the compelling evidence Jared presented. In her manipulation of his career for financial gain, the judge had been particularly scathing in his summation, noting that Sharon's behavior demonstrated a callous disregard for the sanctity of marriage and a level of calculated manipulation that this court finds abhorrent. The final divorce decree had left Sharon with only her personal belongings and a small settlement that barely covered her legal fees. As Jared signed the final divorce papers, he felt not triumph but a sense of closure. The last legal tie to his old life had been severed, leaving him free to fully embrace his new beginning. Now, as Jared stood on the balcony of his beachfront condo in Costa Rica, watching the sun set over the Pacific, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy him had instead been the catalyst for a transformation he could never have imagined. His phone buzzed with a message from Maria. She was flying in tomorrow to spend the weekend with him. Jared smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. The past was behind him, and the future looked brighter than ever. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Jared raised his glass in a silent toast, to justice served, to lessons learned, and to the promise of new beginnings. The price of betrayal had indeed been high, but in the end, it had led him to a life more fulfilling than he could have ever imagined. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to this channel, click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.